Hello and welcome to All About Autism. Our monthly charity show on London Group Radio aims to help us all better understand autism so we can together create a better society for the neurodivergent community. I'm your co-host this evening. I'm Ellie Christodoulou, and you might have noticed I've changed my surname. It's my married name, but I haven't recently got married. It's been about a decade. But the procrastination is real, guys. So I just couldn't fathom trying to gather all the information. And anyway, that's another show, isn't it? But anyway, so I will pass on to my two lovely hosts.
Hello, I'm Lennie Varvarides, founder of Displa, and we produce and develop the work of neurodivergent storymakers.
Hi, I'm James Gordon. I'm one of the main charity trustees for London Autism Group charity.
How is everyone?
So when you were talking about not sorting out your name,
Yeah.
I got married a couple of years ago, and
Yeah.
I'm still using the same name. So it's just like,
okay.
more paperwork.
Yes, it is that actually. And I've just started now, so I've got the bank stuff ready. I've changed that, so it's got to be the passport or the official documents. It is huge.
Especially if you've got quite a few years left on your passport.
I just renewed it last year, which is a bit annoying.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, I have to redo that. But I'm really happy that my husband's really great on paperwork, and he does quite a lot of it. So shout out to him. Thank you.
They have their uses.
They
do. These husbands.
Yes, definitely. As listeners may know, each monthly episode focuses on a different autism-related topic. For today's show, we'll be discussing neurodivergent, self-regulating and well-being. Really important, isn't it? We'll also be examining the challenges and how we overcome them, and what we do, such as stimming, meditating, physical body movement, and more. So please don't hesitate to contact us if you want to ask or share anything, so we can read and discuss today's topic live on air. You can do this easily by going to facebook.com/London Autism Group Charity and clicking on the live stream of this episode. Then you can add a comment or question. We'll be watching your comments throughout the show. We'd also like to point listeners to the London Autism Group Charity YouTube channel, which has all of the All About Autism episodes uploaded there in case you miss a show and you want to catch up. And to find that, you go to YouTube and search for London Autism Group Charity. It's best to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes we upload there. Right, so let's get cracking. So James, can you explain what self-regulating means and why it's so important?
Well, self-regulating is generally, we call it stimming, for self-stimulation. It's basically someone's personal coping mechanism. Every autistic person and most neurodivergent people generally have a method of coping with situations, the environment around them. There's lots of factors in the environment that can be stressful, and we need ways to cope. So an example I can give that most people do anyway is they might tap their leg, or
involuntary movement.
They might bite the tops of their pencils.
Yeah.
That's what we used to do.
And neurotypical people do this, but don't even realise it. But when we put a name to it and we say, actually, this is stimming, it's a bit like, oh.
Well, I didn't, having the language is quite a new thing for all of us.
Yeah.
So I remember I only started understanding or hearing people use the word stimming maybe like in 2018.
Yeah.
Never really heard people talk about that before. So it's like we're doing things, but we don't have the language for it.
Yeah.
And we're living with different types of conditions and we don't have the knowledge of it. So I think a lot more people are probably neurodivergent and autistic than they even know. And that's the kind of thing that gives it away, like the tapping of the knee, or like the shifting around, or the twirling your hair. I mean, I always bring a cup because this is kind of like my crutch, like to have something to hold. So we're all doing it all the time. It's just whether or not we realise why we're doing it or not.
Yes, and go on, James.
I think with the language, I think a lot of autistic advocates have invented the language for us, because we didn't have terms for it, and and social media's come along and it's been able to they spread it around much easier than it would have done before then. So that's why it's only been the last 5 or 10 years that the community's really started moving things forward with things like language. I'll just give another example. So my son is autistic, but he's also been diagnosed with a lot of learning disabilities, and that was picked up right from a very early age. From when he was 1 onwards, he had like a paediatrician straight away, and because it was very, very obvious, because he was stimming in every way possible. He was like flapping his arms a lot, shouting a lot, but he can't talk. He would spin around, all kinds of things.
But again, that's all communication, isn't it? And that's what we were talking about. Even though he doesn't have the words, it's all communicating to you that he wants something, or pointing, or taking you, or flapping.
Is it selective mutism, or he just doesn't?
No, he can't. I think, because I can remember back, it's weird. I must have struggled as well with learning to talk. I remember that I spoke very late, but I can actually remember, like, it must have been very close to the time when I did speak. I can remember the memory of sitting down and suddenly realising, oh, isn't this wonderful? And it was, I think, somehow something clicked in me and I managed to figure it out. But I think with Daryl, he stayed with like the kind of baby language that, like, you try and get a baby to talk and you say ma ma ma, and he does that a lot now, but he hasn't been able to take it to the next level and learn words and that kind of thing.
So thanks, James. Lennie, what kind of things do you think that our listeners might be thinking what they can do if they're in a kind of stressful situation, or something's coming up and they know that it's going to be something that they can't cope with? How would they self-regulate then?
I mean, I think everyone has their own thing they do anyway. Some things, like we said before, are subtle, like you could be twirling your hair. Other things could become more self-destructive, like you could be pulling your nails, biting your nails, picking your skin, scratching your face. Like it can become, the more anxious someone is, I think the more sort of aggressive the stimming becomes. But it's just trying to work out like why we get to that point. Like what is it that is the trigger? Because then that way we work backwards, as opposed, like, I think it's easier to work backwards to know, like, what is it that's triggering us? Is it going somewhere we've never been before? Is it feeling under pressure? Is it an interview? Is it a test, like an exam? Like, what is it that's triggering you to start with? Sometimes it's boredom, sometimes it's too much energy and you don't know what to do with it, and you end up doing a repetitive action. But what we encourage with our daughter from a really young age, because she was biting nails and all that kind of stuff, was to get her drawing so that she'd have something else to focus on that was external. So like playing with a stimming toy, listening to music, drawing, something tactile, I think is really important. So they're just a couple of ideas. Probably other people have got more.
No, that's really important that you said that. So it's important to kind of focus on the perhaps the creative side, like the drawing, the poetry, the art, maybe. But also, I was just thinking about our culture and the stressful situations that perhaps we are put under, like going to church. I shouldn't say this. I couldn't sit still for 2 hours listening to ancient Greek hymns. Was just really, really tricky. And that used to stress me out. It was something that I just couldn't comprehend. Why I needed to do it, why I needed to be there for so long. So that was really challenging, right? So I'm just thinking about going to large functions or meeting people that perhaps are, you know, not in the immediate family, but, you know, functions, really loud kind of parties and stuff like that. So, you know.
Well, I think what people do now is they just lose themselves in their phone. Like the phone to some extent is a form of stimming, because you're removing yourself mentally from that environment. I mean, a lot of people just don't go, don't they? Especially if, like, I don't know, if you're looking for an excuse not to be around loads of people, it's very easy to come up with one, isn't it? So I think a lot of neurodivergent people opt out of those big social functions. But then, you know, you still have to socialise. It's easier to make adaptations with younger people because you can have the headphones, you know, you can have like something to distract them to make it a bit more comfortable. But is that the right thing? Like, is it right to find ways to, do you know what I mean? Like, at what point is it like we are just disconnected from each other? I don't know.
Do you mean so if you have the phone, is it better for you to have that and be there, or just say no, I'm not coming because I just can't? But
I think that's what it's all about, self-regulation. It's like working out what is it that is stressing you about an environment and getting to a point where, like, we can live in harmony, because life has to carry on whether we're neurodivergent or not. Like, things still have to happen. So how do you balance that? And the balance is working out what is your stresses, what are your triggers, what are you needing self-regulation for.
I've got an example. I find it really uncomfortable to have any telephone conversation because I can't see the other person. I can't, for some, you know, so I can't see. There's none of the cues that you get in a conversation because you can't see them. But I obviously have to make phone calls. So what I do, I use movement, and I've done that unconsciously. I only found that out that I was pacing up and down when somebody once said, "Oh, what was it? They said something like, "Oh, what are you scheming because you're pacing up and down, so you must be scheming something."
So right. Oh gosh.
So, well, you look shifty because you're pacing up and down.
Right.
I didn't realise I did that when I was on the phone, but it's only when they pointed it out. So I'm obviously getting the movement out of it. Now I know. It's actually good because I'm less afraid of the phone because I know I've got something that will get me through it. I think it helps my thoughts flow. And
I'm the same.
Things like that.
I need to be moving, and like I used to think it's because I don't want to waste time. So it felt like a waste of time if my body is just sitting, like, and had to have a phone call. It just felt like such a wasted opportunity.
So you were moving
to do
around, you were
something.
getting your steps in.
Yeah, so I was getting my steps in, or I was sweeping, or I was washing the dishes, because it just didn't make sense to me why I would sit still to talk. Like, even this, I find this really difficult. Like, us sitting here for an hour, having to talk, having to make eye contact. Like, I just feel very restless, and I think, you know, I think it has got something to do with I like to think it has something to do with an excess of energy. Like, I find that because we're quite, I don't know, our brains are moving so quickly. It's only natural that our bodies would need to echo the speed in which our thoughts are moving. So I kind of feel like we can't keep separating our body from our brain, like they're one organism. So if your brain is running 1,000,000 miles an hour, it makes sense that your body needs to do something with that energy.
No, but that's really good that you are able to kind of verbalize that and put words to it, and we're able to sit here and do it, you know, because sometimes it's, you know, some difficulties that are happening, you just don't know, but when we sit here and discuss it, it's a bit like light bulb moment.
That's why I said, like, a lot of us have got things, but we just don't know what they're called. We don't have the language for it. We don't realise that's what it is. You know? So.
Right, okay, so I think we'll go to a break now, and we'll catch up on some comments, and we'll see you after the break.
It's LGR London.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to All About Autism show on first Thursday of the month, and just to remind everyone about our topic this evening, we are talking about self-regulating and the importance of it and well-being. So before we continue, this is just a reminder to those listening that you can watch us live stream and send comments and questions by going to facebook.com/London Autism Group Charity, and we can read out your comments if you wish to. So I think we can now discuss perhaps what our triggers are, and then think about what we do in order to self-regulate ourselves. Who wants to go first?
I think maybe boredom is one. Definitely. I can't stand it. Being bored. But also the eye contact is really painful as well. And when people have tried to make me do that.
Well, I never understand that. Why would somebody make you look at them? I've never understood that.
I can understand if it's a way of understanding the other person. So a bit like what you were saying, that if you can't see someone's face on a telephone call, you find it hard to read the communication. I find it hard to hear almost what people are saying to me if I haven't locked eye contact with them.
Okay.
So I do think it's like a form of like just being able to focus the conversation. So I do think it is important. I know that it's also really uncomfortable for people to make eye contact, but I don't know, I kind of feel that it's too easy to misunderstand someone if you don't have that connection, that eye contact, for that person to know that you're really listening to them, because it's also about showing the other person you're listening as opposed to just listening.
But I always find it, so if you see my eyeballs rolling, it's because I'm listening, I'm trying to concentrate on what you're saying. So if my eyes are going sort of up and down and left and right, I'm trying to recall information, I'm trying to think about what you're saying, I'm trying to relate to it, there's so many things going on. So for someone to point it out, I think first of all it just feels so uncomfortable.
But do you ever explain why? So for example, like sometimes like I've been in meetings and people would have their eyes closed, and I used to think, oh, they've fallen asleep, like someone kicked them under the table, they've fallen asleep. But then someone else said to me, oh no, it helps me hear better, I can concentrate better if my eyes are closed. And I've recognised that a little bit in myself, like when I'm trying to do a really hard task, and it's really hard for me because I'm a bit basic, but like trying to put a plug in the wall and there's not a lot of space, for example, I have to close my eyes to be able to focus, to put the plug in its socket. So I can understand how closing your eyes can almost heighten all of your other senses.
Yes,
it does make sense. But yes, we're so programmed into what is polite, like what is polite. You know,
social norms,
isn't it? And we're, I think
not easy. I think that's why a lot of the stereotypes about autistic people being rude and this kind of thing exist, because it's just like neurotypical people don't understand what we're doing.
Good point. But I think because we talk about it all the time, and we've said this before, I can get sometimes a little bit impatient, but I kind of bring myself back to, actually, you're quite far ahead on your journey about talking about it all the time. So you have to go back and be patient with people and try and explain. And it's not because they're being rude, it's about an understanding and about an awareness, I think. And I have to, I'm a bit guilty of that. I have to pull myself back.
It is hard to bring people with you.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like more work,
doesn't it?
Just like you constantly feel you're having to explain the way that you communicate, and each time you do that, you realise that you've got an unusual way of communicating. Yeah. And in an ideal world, like, you would only mix with other people that are also neurodivergent, so that you have that shorthand. But it goes back to what we were saying before, like, we live in a society with lots of different types of humans, and we have to like work out about what we can do to not only self-regulate, but to make communication easier. Because like you said at the beginning of the show, like, this is about becoming a more inclusive, you know, being more inclusive, but that also means we also have responsibility to be more inclusive of people that don't really know why we're so weird.
In a good way.
But I think it's nice to just normalize the weirdness as well. Like, we have a different way of thinking, different way of communicating, and it can be challenging, but it's also an opportunity to learn more about ourselves.
I honestly, every time I speak, and I'm sitting here now, and I'm thinking, my main mind is racing, because I'm thinking, oh yes, that's I haven't kind of clicked that, or I haven't put that together. So as you say, all the time when we're speaking about it, there are light bulb moments. So I'm still on that journey of
discovery.
Yeah, absolutely, all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
But that's part of yourself. What was the title of this thing again?
Self-regulating.
That's part of yourself. It's part of your journey to better understanding how you process. And it goes back to what I said earlier about, like, we need to know what it is that triggers us, so that we can better understand how to self-regulate ourselves. So what do you think your triggers are?
So definitely appointments, like, of any sort. So if it's a hospital or a doctor, making a phone call. Again, I went to the bank and I thought that I'd said everything that I needed to do to have my name changed, and I thought she said I was going to send you cards, and I thought, oh, it's getting on a bit, I haven't received any cards. So I had to make that phone call. It was just, it's taken me all this time to do that, and again, there's always obstacles. So I just had to kind of, positive talk helps me as well. In my head, you can do it, and also just thinking it through with husband as well. Like, he's got a bit of a logical, you do this, you do this, you do this, not get to the end.
But do you have ADHD?
Probably.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's the simple things that are hardest, it's like really with executive functioning.
Yes.
So just, being able to organise an appointment, show up for the appointment, not be worried that you've forgotten the paperwork that you need for the appointment. Like, all of those steps, it is really stressful. Very stressful.
And again, journeys really stress me out.
And is it because you feel like are you scared that you're gonna get lost, or is it the anxiety of not knowing what to expect?
Getting lost, even though probably it's maybe a road that I've passed
a million times.
It sounds really, and I suppose this is what we talk about when you're normalising things, because it's something that affects me. So in order to regulate myself, I have to look at it and look at the map and look at the road and how am I going to get there and how am I going to park, where am I going to park, can I go by foot, can I go by bus, because I hate driving. Yeah, so those are the things that really trigger me, and it's I wish I could meditate, and we were talking about this, weren't we, Lennie, about sort of finding a space to ground me and have that logic brain instead of that fear taking over, because when that takes over I kind of shut down and I just can't do it. So when I'm there, it's really hard to get back to a place where I'm grounded and I can do it. So
right now you don't have a strategy, you just absorb the stress.
I absorb it because that's what I saw. So caregivers, you know, you just get on with it. If you just do it, just don't talk about it, just get on with it.
When you say caregivers,
parents, I suppose. Yeah. So you know, or asking for help's really difficult as well. Trying to find the words of, because you're going to look silly. I mean, you passed. You know, what is the big deal?
I always say it's the simple things that are the hardest, yet the hardest things we find quite easy to do. It's like solving big problems might be something that we feel quite confident with, but the small things seem to stress us out.
How about you, Lennie?
I feel that I live in my own world a lot of the time, so most of the time I'm not really aware of my surroundings, so I don't get stressed by my surroundings because I'm technically mentally I'm doing something else anyway. I'm physically here but I'm not mentally here, so that kind of stuff doesn't affect me. But knowing I have to do something, that is the stress for me. Like knowing a deadline is coming and not being able to sort of just challenge that deadline. It's almost like I have to wait until like 15 minutes before something's due. Like even, you know, leaving the house, if you know you've got to leave the house at 7, I almost don't get ready until 6:45. Like I leave everything as far to the edge.
And that stress you out though, because when you're talking about it, it feels like that I can't.
I think there'll be that time will expand in some weird magical way, that like we'll get to the deadline, but then there'll be this like extra gift of time that's just going to come landing. So it's not very logical, but I just feel like I don't sense urgency, and I can't, like, unless, I don't know, it sounds bizarre, but it is an ADHD thing where you have no concept of time. So I just feel like eventually everything will just fall into place. And I would rather probably like rush to get the train than leave the house early and walk in a calm way to get to the train. So and it's this idea of like always needing to be on the edge of something. And it causes a sense of like I was watching this thing, I'm probably going to butcher up the explanation, but the idea is that your cells renew when you're at a point of stress. So if you run really quickly and your heart is racing, like anything that makes your heart race creates new cells in your body. So then I started thinking maybe there's something about neurodivergent people that, because a lot of people say, oh, neurodivergent people look younger than they are, or neurodivergent people seem a bit more immature than other people, or they have this like young energy about them. And I wonder if there's a connection between not really processing responsibility and time.
There's a research project, isn't it? Wow, project.
Well, you know, the idea that would make sense why we come across so young in energy, because we're constantly renewing our white blood cells, which is the thing that makes you look younger. I don't know. So yeah, if you want to look young, listeners, run for that train.
I was just assuming it's like, I know it's an ADHD thing, that you can't motivate. So say, I'm thinking about all my exams when you leave the revision.
Oh,
that kind of
yeah.
thing. But apparently that's not a thing we can control with ADHD. You can't sort of blame yourself for that. But it is about when you leave it, you do get this adrenaline.
Yeah.
And
we're junkies. For
whatever.
it.
I don't know what is it, dopamine and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that sort of, on one occasion, I can remember being up working all through the night and doing like 7 essays or something.
Yeah.
And,
Oh gosh.
and getting it done.
Yeah.
Where for some reason, you know, I had the time. I sat down and tried to do the stuff, but I couldn't make myself do it.
It's a discipline thing, and it's the thing you have to force yourself to do because it's so unnatural for people with ADHD or dyslexia. Like it's just an unnatural state. So
yeah, I was also I watched a video where there's this expert on ADHD. He was saying it's because so he compared like neurodivergent people often play computer games and that kind of thing, and with that he said you get an instant kind of result. You're getting like feedback all the time because what you're doing, you're seeing the results. But with
almost immediately,
with
that's true actually.
With homework or with something like that, it's a delayed response. So
Yes.
the ADHD person can't do that. You can't force yourself past the ADHD to do that.
And I suppose that also relates to doom scrolling, as they say, with the phones and having it always with you because it's instant, isn't it? Swipe, swipe, swipe. You get that fix, that hit.
And the binging on, on TV programs.
Yeah.
So we've just cancelled our Netflix subscription. We did it for political reasons, but also we're really happy to see what we'll do with all that time. Because
did you watch it a lot?
I if I was left on my own, I would sit there and binge and go to bed until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Really?
Like I had to.
You need to see what you're watching.
Well, I've been watching loads of stuff. It doesn't have to be good. It just has to keep me awake.
Yeah.
But it's this idea of like what you were saying, about needing the dopamine fix and then falling into these bad habits. And people with neurodivergence, they tend to have more addictive personalities, which is why it's so important to learn how to self-regulate so that we don't end up causing more harm to ourselves. And addiction doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. It can be food. It can be consuming social media.
Shopping.
It can be it can be shopping. It can be overspending. It could be so many things. And it all goes back to how much do we know about ourselves? Because the more we know about ourselves, the easier it is to work out what's triggering us and what kind of an environment do we need to design so that we stay mentally healthy. Because it is a form of a mental health condition if you are trapped in an action and you keep repeating an action that you know is bad for you. That's why they say with addicts it's a mental health problem. So it all crosses over, nothing is in isolation, everything overlaps.
So this is kind of an issue that I've thought about, and I think I'm going to try and have a wellbeing day for the charity in the City of London in the summer. So
that ties in beautifully, James.
Yeah, so
I'll get away.
Ask Lennie to do some meditation for us, and I've got another lady who does neurodivergent fitness, and she's a fitness coach who individually coaches neurodivergent people, and I've got Nikki Fawcett who does our Tai Chi sessions and activities. I'm going to try and get a lovely venue as well. It's a relaxing place. So watch this space, and
That's
tell
great.
you about that later.
And it is really important for neurodivergent people to have a physical outlet, especially ADHD, because what we were talking about, having all of that pent up energy. So it is really important to have something. My sister's a personal trainer, and most of their clients are neurodivergent.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's quite important. And a couple of years ago, when I had an intern, and they were from America, and they were really young, you know, like they came for an internship, and they had been on medication since they were like 15 or 16. Like in America, if you've got ADHD, they kind of put you on medication as soon as they can. But she was saying the thing that worked for her more than even her medication was going for a jog 2 or 3 times a day.
Oh, wow.
So they'd get up early, they'd go for a jog, they'd go for a jog after class, they'd go for a jog before they went to bed. And they said they had to exhaust their body to be able to have their mind switch off and be able to have a good night's sleep.
Yeah, sure.
So again, it's just looking at what is it that you need, what helps you get to a point where you feel like you can relax, because that's what self-regulation is, isn't it?
It is.
It's just calming down your nervous system so that you feel like you can cope with the day.
Absolutely. And if you think that everyone's different, even neurotypicals, then it's about finding your way, what works for you. So something that works for you might not necessarily work for me, but I've had a few comments come through during the week from various people, and they've said completely different things. Some are like intense bath heat helps, music, using the senses, so using smelly candles or burning incense, or outside, like grass, wet grass, that helps. Being outside, outdoors, listening to bird song, nature. So it's as you say, it's finding what works for you and going for it, really. And if it's not harmful to anyone else and it helps, definitely helps, then
it's also simple, isn't it? Like the things that people say that they need, they're all such simple things, like, you know, appreciating nature, having a hot bath, incense, candles. These aren't expensive things. Going for a walk, touching grass, like being around nature, like these are very accessible things to all of us. And it's quite interesting that we don't need very much. We just need to get back to something more natural, a more natural world.
James, was there something that you wanted to?
I wanted to mention these. I don't know what they're called. But,
well,
they're prayer beads.
But I think it's spaderemin in Greek. It's
so Chris got my son some of those, and he really loves them. And apparently he's using it correctly. It's very tactile, and he's just instinctively using it to self-regulate now. So he takes it out with him all the time.
So nice.
But it's very interesting that that's part of the culture and tradition.
Well, my dad used to have them. He had these gorgeous big brown beads. And I thought it was a necklace. I didn't know what it was when I was little. And he says, no, you're going to count your worries. And he'd sit there and I'd be like, Dad, how many worries do you have? There's like 30 beads on that. And he's like, oh, you don't know.
Oh, yeah. So it goes back, doesn't it? See, stimming for men, which they didn't have words or they didn't know what they were doing. It was just something that they did whilst drinking coffee and talking to their pals. So, that's, if it works for Daryl, that's great, and it's helpful. So you see, everyone finds different things that they can.
It's a form of meditation as well, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. Did you want to say something about your meditation technique, Lennie? Sorry, why you can't. Sorry.
So I kind of discovered something by accident. I wanted to make my own like face cream, and I was watching all these videos on TikTok about how frankincense was really God, I've spoken about my dad. He died a couple of years ago, and I'm a bit all emotional. But do you want to talk about something else?
Yeah, sure.
My breath?
So I was talking about the senses. I think the senses is really, for me, is something that I can reach to. So the smell, the touch, the taste and hearing. What I go to is, for me, living my best life is a big packet of crisps, that crunch sensation, and watching something really trashy on TV. That is living my best life with no one around, and I don't have to share my crisps. That's the best. Anyway, what is yours, James?
That's Daryl's as well. It's food, definitely. Probably that could be me as well. But it tends to be when he's gone to sleep, so he doesn't see.
Yes, exactly. I know that rustling of the packet. It's like meerkats. Everyone's like, their ears prick up, and they're like, "Oh, can I have some?" I'm like, "Oh, you can have a little bowl," but most of them are mine. Sorry. Yeah. You okay?
Yeah, I'm alright now. So I wanted to create my own cream.
Yeah.
And frankincense is a very beautiful smell. I don't know if anyone.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and if you grind it from the it smells even more divine.
Oh.
So I used the sort of powder frankincense in castor oil and shea butter, and I just had it. Originally, it was just going to be like my night cream, and then as I was using it one day, like I just started like rubbing it on in the middle of my head. And then I realised this like weird feeling of intense focus. And for me that's quite a big deal because, like I said, like I can't really focus on any one thing. I'm kind of a bit of a jitterbug. But as I was like rubbing it in a circle, I started thinking, I wonder how long I can stay doing this and stay focused. So I put the timer on, and I was able to do this sort of very intense focus for 5 minutes. Again, that's a big deal for me. And I was like, oh my God, is this what meditation is? And then I got a few other people that are also neurodivergent to try it, and they're like, it absolutely worked for them, even though meditation had never worked for them before, because they had the sense of texture, so they could feel what they were doing. And then I said to them, you have to keep doing it until the cream runs out, which takes about 5 minutes. And then they were like, and then they had a concept of time. So these are two things that neurodivergent people struggle with, like we've already been talking about, like this sense of how long is 5 minutes. I really couldn't tell you how long 5 minutes is, but when my cream runs out, then I can tell you the cream's run out. So I just realised accidentally that this way of meditating was really quite powerful. Then I did a bit more research, and apparently this is where your third eye is.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
So if you tap in the middle of your forehead, in between your eyebrows, you're kind of waking up your subconscious. So then I thought, well, actually, this is quite useful for neurodivergent people because we're already quite sensitive to otherness, like to spirituality and energy and like mysticism. So I was thinking, I wonder if this is why we're so connected to that side of our personalities, because it's right here for us. It's all so tangible.
So interesting, isn't it? And also the tapping.
The tapping's meant to be really powerful.
It's really good. Oh, amazing. Right, well, we could talk about this all the time, couldn't we? Far longer than we've got anyway, but we're coming to the end of the show and we've got to wrap up, so thank you. I thought that was really interesting. And our next show will be on the 6th of March at 7 p.m, which is always the first Thursday of the month. We'll be live streaming the show on the charity Facebook page, facebook.com/London Autism Group Charity. So feel free to stop by and say hi or ask a question. We would also like to remind you that you can pop into one of the charity community cafes, and one that's happening on Sunday at Southgate at St Andrew's Church, which is next to Asda. So from 1 till 3 you can pop in and say hi. Also currently have community cafes in Islington, Ealing, Woodford, Grays in Essex, and we've also got a new one in Lewisham, South London, so we've gone down south. And let's not forget about the monthly activity day for autistic adults at the Holy Sepulchre Church in the City of London. And James wanted to say...
That's happening on Saturday.
Oh, it's on Saturday. Okay.
Yeah, from 1 till 4.
Great. Okay, and thank you to our listeners and Tony and Video for helping for everything in the background and putting the songs I like on. And stay tuned for the amazing Antonis Prokopi. We'll have a great month. Till then, bye.